Morning Year 4. This week we'll be starting a new topic in maths, which is money, and this should correspond with week 7 of your home learning pack. We're going to be revisiting bits and pieces of last week's learning around ones, tenths and hundredths in order to make that connection between decimals and pounds and pence. So let's start by looking at some coins. Okay, so first we have 1 pence and £1. And what you'll notice is that for both of these amounts, there are symbols that represent the value of the coin. So P, which represents pence, comes after the amount, and the pound sign here, which is for pounds, come before the amount. And as we're in year 4, we should already know that there are 100 pennies in a pound, making these two amounts equivalent. So I'm just going to keep this fact here. £1 is equal to 100 pence. And that's an important fact to know because later on we will be converting between pounds and pence. In order to turn pounds into pence, so from 1 to 100, we would need to multiply by 100. So 1 multiplied by 100 makes 100 pence. And if we were to go the other way around, if you were trying to turn pence into pounds, you would need to do the inverse, which means the opposite operation. So if we're multiplying this way, we're going to be dividing the opposite way. So divide by 100. And depending on the amounts, this may give us a decimal. So let's have a look at representing these two amounts as decimals. £1 in this case would represent 1 whole. And because it is a whole, we would just keep it as it is right now, £1. We wouldn't need to put 0 in the tenths and hundredths. It wouldn't really be necessary for this amount here. But 100 pence would look like this. So 100 lots of 1 pence coins would be the same, they're equivalent as a pound. If we were to draw one pence as a decimal, so that's 1 square out of the pound, it would look very much different. It would be 100th of the pound. So let's see if we can remember how to draw hundredths. So let's move this out of the way. We're going to start, of course, by drawing our pound symbol because it always comes before the amount. There are 0 ones in 1 pence because we would need the whole amount in order for it to be £1, all of these 1 pence coins. We have 0 tenths because a tenth, remember, is 10 lots of these squares out of the whole, which in terms of money in this case would be 10p. And we have 1 pence, that's 1 square, so 100th, 0.01. Now it's your turn to have a go converting these amounts from pence into pounds, and as a chilly challenge from pounds into pence. And you've got the method here for converting between the two, as well as a place value chart here with tens and hundreds for some of the larger sums. So press pause now and press play when you're ready to have a go together. Let's have a look at the first one, 4 pence. I'm going to put 4 here in the ones column, but because we've already worked out before that 1 pence is actually equivalent to 100th of the whole, then automatically I know that this 4 pence isn't going to quite stay in the ones column. Let's have a look at our fact here to help us work out which of place value it does belong in. So we're going from pence into pounds, which means we need to divide. And dividing means it needs to get smaller, so its place value will be moving towards the right, toward the tenths and the hundredths. And we're dividing it by 100, which means we're moving it 2 places. So let's move it 2 places, 1, 2, 4 hundredths, similar to the 1 pence, which was 100th of the pound. And we're not just going to leave it like that. We need to put something in these 2 empty places here. Do you remember what they are? Placeholders. So I'm just going to slide down my placeholders. I've got one here, and most importantly, our decimal point between the ones, decimal point and the tenths. Okay, so our amount should be 0.04 pounds, which is equivalent to 4 pence. And we could, if we wanted to double check, we could go the opposite way around. So we could look at our 400ths, and if we wanted to convert that into pence, so from pounds to pence, we're multiplying by 100. This would need to move 2 places to the left because it's getting bigger. We're multiplying 1, 2, and that would make it 4 pence. Okay, but for now we were just turning it in from pence to pounds. Let's have a look at our second question. So 12 pence, I'm going to move these out of the way and put them in the correct place value. So 110 and 2 ones. And again, from 12 pence into pounds, we need to divide it by 100. So moving both of these digits 2 places to the right, we're making them smaller. So 2 from the ones, 1, 2, and this 110, 1, 2. And again, what do we put in this empty ones? We put our placeholder. So our answer should be 0.12 pounds. Okay, if we were to look back at our little diagram here, it would be the same as if we had 1/10 and 200. So it does link back to what we did last week. And let's have a look at our last question. So 150 pence into pounds. So again, I'm going to move these out of the way, rearrange them a little bit. So 1 in the hundreds, 5 in the tens, because that's 50, and 0 in the ones, 150 pence. And again, same as the other two, we are dividing it by 100. So all 3 of these digits need to move 2 places to the right. So let's start with our ones. 1, 2 into the hundreds, our tens, 1, 2 into the tenths, and our 1 here, which is in the hundreds, we're going to move it 1, 2. So this one is in the ones. And this means, because it is before the decimal point, that we have 1 whole. So 1 whole of these squares, 5 tenths, which would be 5 lots of tens, and 0 hundredths. Okay, so £1.50. And again, with money, we do always put that place value there at the end. Have a look at the chili challenges. So I'm going to move these 3 out of the way. And let's look at £2.30, so 2.30. I'm going to put those amounts here. Ooh. And our 0 in the hundredths column. And this time we're turning them from pounds into pence, which means we need to multiply by 100. So all 3 of these digits need to be moving to the left this time. They're getting bigger when we multiply. And again, because we're multiplying by 100, it means they need to move 2 places. So let's take our 2 here first from the ones. 1, 2 into the hundreds. Our 3 in the tenths. 1, 2 into the tens. And our 0 in the hundredths. 1, 2 into the ones as a placeholder. So we have 230 pence is equivalent to £2.30. So let's write that down. So this is no greater than this one. They're both exactly the same amount, except this is in pence and these are in pounds. And let's have a look at the next one. 0.50 or 0.50 from pounds into pence. So again, we need to make it first and then we're going to multiply it. So let's move these 3 out of the way and let's get some of our amounts. So we've got quite a few placeholders here. We've got a 0 in the ones, our 5 in the tenths, and another 0 in the hundredths. So again, we've got £0.50 and we need to turn it from pounds into pence, which means we need to multiply it by 100, moving all of these digits 2 places to the left. So let's start with a 0, 1, 2 into the hundreds, tenths, 1, 2 into the tens, and hundredths, 1, 2 into the ones. And again, when we get into whole numbers, we don't really need to have this 0 here as a placeholder. So 50 pence is equivalent to £0.50. So these 2 are the same. If you got all of that right, fantastic. There are more challenges like this on week 7, so go and take a look and have a go. And please, please, please show off your work, send it into school. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at a different type of question. We'll be looking at different amounts of coins and having a go recording them both as pounds and pence, as well as decimals using these sentence stems. And we're going to do the first one together. You're going to have a go in a minute of doing the second one on your own. In your home learning packs, you might come across these questions like how much money is in each jar or in each purse, but it's also a really good skill to have by recording amounts before you answer problem solving questions. So let's keep that in mind while we have a go. So let's look at this first amount here. We have £1, £2. I always start by counting my pounds first. So I'm going to fill that in here, £2. And then we can start by counting our pence. So it's easier to start with the bigger numbers first. So I'm going to start with this 50 pence here and then add on. So 50 plus 20 pence makes 70 pence. Add 5 pence, 75. And add our 1 pence, 76. So I'm going to write here 76 pence. Okay, there is, and now we've come to the bit where we've got our symbols, so our pound symbol and our pence symbol. There is £2 and 76 pence. Okay, now we know from all the work that we've done before that this 76 pence is not a whole number, so it wouldn't be long before in the ones column here, if we were imagining if this is our decimal point, our ones would be here, it would come after. So let's start by putting our £2 here. There is £2, our decimal point, which is representative of that, and our 76 pence. £2.76. So this would be tenths, these would be hundredths. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a chance to have a go on your own. So there you go. You've got some new coins here. Press pause and then press play when you're ready to work it out together. Okie dokes. So let's start again with our pounds. There is something pounds. In this one we only have £1. So I'm going to put 1 here. There is £1. And then we're going to move on to our pence. So remember, we're doing it by order of the largest coins first. I'm going to arrange it in a way that helps me. So start with our 20p's. 20 and 20 makes 40. Add 10 makes 50, so we have 50p. Add 5p makes 55. Add 2, 55, 56, 57. And add our 1, 58. £1.58. So let's put our 58 pence here. And we can fill in this next box now that we know what our two parts are. So there is £1 and 58 pence. And again, although our 1 is a whole, so we can put that here in our ones column, after the decimal points comes our pence, because 58 pence is not quite a whole just yet. So I'm going to put here right after the decimal point in our tenths and hundredths column, £1.58. If you got that correct, well done. Finally, we are going to complete some part whole models to show how many pounds and pence there are. Let's look at the first one here. We've got two parts, £16 and 5 pence, and I know they're parts because they're both connected to our whole. So what I'm going to do to make it easy for myself to add together, I'm going to convert this 5 pence into pounds. So from pence to pounds, we need to divide by 100. You could work it out two ways. You could convert it by using a place value chart to move it 2 places to the right because we're making it smaller, or you can use a derived fact to work it out in your head. In this instance, I'm going to use a derived fact because 5 pence is quite similar to 1 pence. If 1 pence is 1/100th of a pound, then 5 pence is 5/100ths of a pound. So I'm going to write that here, 0.05. And that just makes it easier to add the two together. So I'm going to write it here, £16, okay, plus 0.05. And if it helps, you can also draw placeholders to add the two columns, add all these columns together. So let's start with our hundredths, our smallest amount. 0 add 5 makes 5. 0 tenths add 0 tenths makes 0. Our decimal point, 6 ones add 0 makes 6. And 1/10 add nothing makes 1. So that brings us £16, 5 pence. And it's really important that we put our placeholder here. If we were to just add it as it was, it might have given us a totally different answer. So I'm going to write here £16.05. If you got that correct, well done. Now let's look at our second question. In this part whole model, our whole has been written in the form of coins. So before we do anything else, what we're going to do is record the amount that we've been given. So I'm going to start with my biggest amount. I've got £1. Okay. In this problem here, our whole has been written in the form of coins. So what we're going to do is record it in terms of decimals. So I'm going to start with my largest amount. I've got £1. And I've got 21 pence. So remember, 20 would be 2 tenths and 1 pence would represent 1/100th of a pound. So I'm going to put a decimal point and 1 £1.21. Our two parts here are both empty, so you might find that you have a variety of different combinations that add up to make £1.21. Whichever two answers that you give, as long as it adds to make £1.21, then the answer is correct. So for example, I might put £1 in one part, £1, and then I might put the remaining 21 pence, or £0.21. £0.21. I might put that in the other part, and our answer would make £1.21. You could also switch these around. You might put 20 here, so you have £1.20, add 1 pence, or any other combination. So if you like, have a go thinking of some more combinations that add together to make £1.21. And there are more questions just like this on the home learning pack.